Trust your own instincts. Make sure that you understand who the people are that you're in meetings with and all.
So building or maintaining a business, you just have to talk to a lot of people.
Gee, 15 years ago, how many people heard of SpaceX 15 years ago when they were just getting off the ground?
Handful at max. You just really don't know who is going to make that impact, but you need to talk to a lot of people. But it is just 1, 2, 3, 4 people. When you're all done and look back over a 30 or 40 year career, it's going to be a handful of people that had an incredible impact on your career.
But budget all you can. I mean, that's got to be number one priority, and stay with that budget.
Just for those of you who are in Florida, it's important to understand that as Florida expands, what's happening is we're ending up with 2 major metropolitan areas. If you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be? Welcome to today's PlanAssist Podcast, where we try to help you make better financial decisions by interviewing successful business leaders and owners throughout Florida for the most part. We'll get outside of Florida some, but we pretty much focus on Florida. And the goal is to help you, again, make better financial decisions. And PlanAssist is really built around first principles when it comes to building wealth individually, which is what I do, but also it includes those same first principles apply to building a business and building kind of a steady stream of income. So it's really built around kind of 3 core questions. Is your lifestyle aligned with your income, or is the same thing's true with your business? Is your income resilient and diversified? And then how do you make progress on that? And that's really what we try to do with this call. So today, I am super excited to talk to and have a conversation with Jim Cameron. He's someone who spent nearly 4 decades at the center of business, government, economic development in Volusia County. He consults through lobbying, communications, and has built a reputation of connecting the right people, understanding how policy really works, and helping more complex projects move forward. For local leadership initiatives and state-level advocacy, Jim has become one of the most respected voices kind of in the region to help really form relationships, strategies around getting stuff done. So is there anything I missed, Jim, that you want to add to that?
No, I appreciate those kind words, though. I mean, you put it very, very well. I mean, like, wow. I appreciate that.
I know when we get to do those intros, it's fun to kind of hear all the stuff you're doing because you don't do it very often. So I can't tell you how excited I am, and we'll get into the very first question. But before I do, I want to kind of set it up for the listeners is building a business is really, really hard. But one of the things that we have to do is understand what policy and what's going on with government, because government is not our enemy. Government can be our friend if you understand kind of what's happening and how do we do that. And Jim's going to help us really just have a conversation around how do we partner with and how do we utilize some of the people and government policies around that. But one thing before we get into that, I wanted to kind of start off with the same question. One thing I do with all my podcasts is I start with the exact same question with everyone. And that is, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be financial advice. Just going back to younger you, what would you tell yourself?
Couple of vacations. Pay more attention to your surroundings.
Okay.
Pay more attention to your surroundings. And I say that, though, make sure that you understand who the people are that you're in meetings with and all. One story for an example. Let's say about 15 years ago, and I want to say again, 15 years ago, 2011, I used to serve on a committee here when I was with Chamber of Commerce with the congresswoman at the time, Sandy Adams. And she served here in Central Florida. And she had me on a subcommittee that she was working with as it relates to aerospace. Now, come on, I'm a lobbyist for Chamber in Daytona, Volusia. I was lucky to be on there. I was just proud to be on there. But one thing that hit me, that I got into a meeting one time, and all of us had placards that we had, right? And so I picked up my placard and I was there late and I was the last seat in the room or whatever at this meeting. And it happened to be next to this person there. And I saw their placard and I just glanced at it. Didn't pay much attention to it though, but I'm who I'm sitting next to. And I figured, I got to get back because I got to get some other meeting after this is done with. I got to get back to Daytona. And I looked at that and I thought, that is a real stupid name for an aerospace company. I mean, who's ever heard of this? I mean, and where will it ever go? I mean, and I didn't pay attention to them. I mean, that's a stupid name, SpaceX. I mean, and I'm sitting next to one of the corporate people from SpaceX, right? And gee, 15 years ago, not how many people heard of SpaceX 15 years ago when they were just getting off the ground?
Handful at max.
I mean, and here I was, I had a chance, just to really make some inroads and all with that company there. Just didn't pay attention to them. Fortunately, though, through another contact I worked with through Chamber of Commerce lobbying was with Senator Marco Rubio's office, and I did some things for them. Okay, their staff person, who I worked with closely, called and arranged for someone from SpaceX to give me a tour of their complex down there at the Cape, which I did make sure to pay attention that time. And I built those relationships, and I still maintain relationships and develop some others in SpaceX. But like I said, again, don't always go by your first judgment.
That is such great advice and a great way to start this conversation, because when I ask that question, I never really know how people will answer it. But I mean, sincerely, that may be one of the best answers that I've heard over the last year. And the reason is it just reminds us all to be present, right? I mean, we have a tendency to get just really busy and we're not paying attention to exactly who or where we're at. And we get focused on, okay, well, later today or tomorrow or yesterday was, but no, be present, right?
And again, don't be prejudiced, so to speak, as it relates to people. In my world, I've gone to meetings here in Daytona, city commission, county council, legislature, hearings, school board. I mean, I've gone to thousands of meetings in 40 years' time. Okay. And then there's a major issue that comes up there, and I see some people and I'll look at, and I think, they're probably, they're not on my side, I can tell you. And I tell you, sometimes you have some friends out there in the audience that'll surprise you. And another example that I like to point out, I had a very, very tough issue as it relates to our Volusia County Council one time. And there was a guy who was a lot of people thought of him as a quack or whatever. And he comes to city and county meetings. He's been coming to them for years and still does. I saw him the other night at a meeting. The guy's homeless, but he gets around. And I had him at this meeting, and I just mentioned to him, whatever. He got up and spoke in support of my issue and probably made more sense than anybody else in the room that day. So don't be ready to prejudge somebody just don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's something that everyone needs to understand. And what, just quickly before I kind of go into the next step of this, where we're going to talk about kind of what opportunities and challenges you see, is one of the things, just to build off what you're saying, is when I'm helping someone younger, they're starting to build a business or something. So the way that I'll kind of work is I say, they think they need 100, 200 people. So they're out talking to just hundreds and hundreds of people. And you have to do that. So I don't want to downplay, you don't have to do that. But what they miss is that it's only one person that can change their lives, right? So you have to talk to a lot of people. But when you go back, I was in a real interesting kind of executive weekend program where the professor had us write down the 5 people who made the biggest impact on our professional careers, right? So it was a whole kind of working, and then they give you like, a half an hour to kind of write those people down, and then some people would call on it. And Jim, it was one of the most fascinating exercises I went through, because I never really thought about it, first of all. So then when I started going through and doing it, I realized that of the 5, 3 of those people, I don't even know. I don't even to this day, I have no relationship with. I know who they are, obviously, but it was through one real kind of chance meeting that they then said, go do this. And it changed the trajectory of my career, finances, and everything. So my point, to your point, you just really don't know who is going to make that impact, but you need to talk to a lot of people. But it is just one, two, three, four people. When you're all done and look back over a 30 or 40-year career, it's going to be a handful of people that had an incredible impact on your career and on your finances and all that.
You're so right. And again, you never know where those people are going to come from. And but let me add at the same time, when you're meeting them and you're talking with them or whatever, trust your own instincts. Trust your own instincts. Because again, there could be that somebody out there that you put a lot of faith into. And I've had some situations like that where I was in business partnership, something like that. And I thought, they've got credentials. I thought they knew what they were doing, right? More so than me. It cost me a lot of money.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, it cost me a lot of money. I mean, and yeah, and I mean, I've had just one time where I've just said, I mean, that's it. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but you have to. And it's just that you have to know when you have to pull the ripcord and get out of a bad situation. But now on the other hand, I mean, I've been most fortunate though to meet with some fantastic people that I'm working with, especially today, my office here. I mean, very much enjoy people who I work with here. And the guy I'm talking with, and my client, I have an office in here in this building, he's half my age.
Right.
And but he knows business, and I get a great deal of advice and guidance, which he's glad to share, and sometimes calls me in and wants to share some ideas with him. And so, yeah, very fortunate in that regard, though.
That's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit. And since you're in Volusia County, which is absolutely exploding from an opportunity perspective in all levels of business, both in the space industry, primarily, I think, but also there's a lot of IT and tech kind of happening. What are the big challenges you see with these businesses as they're kind of getting started? What do you think the single biggest challenge? And then I'll follow up with what do you see as the biggest opportunity?
Well, I want, like I said, land issues. I mean, there's a lot of challenges that we have as far as available land and all. But then again, we have more land opening up here in Volusia County. Let me preface that by saying, going back to one of our best opportunities, and that is aerospace. And I retired from Chamber of Commerce as their lobbyist, so to speak, 5 years ago. But one of the things I did do, and I mentioned earlier, is building relationships. And I built a relationship between our Chamber of Commerce and Space Florida down there at the Cape. And we're getting some of these prospects and all, more so working with Space Florida here in Volusia County. And that's something that we're very much excited seeing come to fruition. Here in Daytona Beach, we have Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And that said, we just brought on what's called Boeing and their research and design R&D. They're providing about 200 engineering type related jobs. And then RO Aero, a French aircraft manufacturer here, that's going to provide about 1,000 jobs. Both of those are related to that connection here with Embry-Riddle.
So help me and help the listener if they don't understand kind of how Florida is set up. Volusia County, that's probably what, an hour north of the Cape for the most
Yep.
part, and then
Yep.
and that's a separate county too, right? Cape is not in Volusia County, but that whole section, kind of from almost Melbourne all the way up to Daytona and north of Daytona even, but primarily Daytona, is turning into kind of a little space coast, isn't it?
Exactly. Because we're trying to, we want to be that trifecta type deal with Brevard County and also with Orange County because they have, UCF over there, a lot of great technical courses over there at UCF. But then we have Embry-Riddle, and then Brevard has Florida Technology Institute. And working, I think those three counties together can provide a lot of opportunities as it relates to more aerospace industry coming in here. close to that launch pad down there at the Cape, which I can see those launches from my office.
Wow.
And so, I mean, and every time I see, a launch goes up, I mean, hey, that's money here in Central Florida. And so, and they're happening. I mean, they're becoming commonplace. You don't even like when I was a kid. I remember it was a big deal back I'm old enough to remember when we first had a rocket go into space from Florida down there. Okay, that was a major event. Now they're going up like every day.
Yeah, I can see them I'm in Orlando. I see them. I mean, most of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you said, it's very common to see a rocket or see everyone out stopped and watching it go up. And now, so as I saw a real interesting YouTube, and again, you got to be somewhat skeptical kind of what it is, but it was one of those real estate upper business YouTubes that was talking about kind of where he sees Florida going, and specifically Orlando and kind of central Florida. And he believed, and he had a bunch of stats, which I'll kind of show you, but I'll be curious what you think. So if you look at Florida today, it looks like everything's happening in Miami, and it is on the surface. But he said that when you fast forward 10 years, you're going to see Orlando probably pass Miami, as crazy as that sounds today. And he said the reason is because my Orlando, it's not all surface stuff. You don't see the companies necessarily, but the foundations being built. You're getting all this massive infrastructure getting in place. And you fast forward 5, 6, 7 years, you'll start seeing those 1,000 jobs come to fruition that you talked about. You'll start seeing these companies, and then all the companies that have to support those companies. You know what I mean? Right. So if you get a company with 1,000 jobs in in Daytona or Central Florida, I mean, and you're the lobbyist, I mean, that probably creates another 20 or 30 kind of jobs that wouldn't exist without those 1,000 jobs, right? I mean, so you get this expansion effect.
Exactly, because you get a major facility here located that provides those type jobs and such. It's going to create a number of spinoff, let's say supply type companies that their primary customer is going to be that manufacturing facility there. And they want to locate close to that manufacturing facility. They may, provide 20, 30 jobs or something, but then again, you're going to have probably several more companies that are going to provide 30, 40, maybe 50 jobs based on that first manufacturing firm that you got there. And so it provides those spinoff companies, like you were just saying.
And I think that's what's so exciting. I wish I was 20 years younger living in Orlando, because when I fast forward, I just see it so many opportunities for someone who understands how to build a business, has the discipline to do it. That's a big challenge that a lot of people do, but come up with an idea and then how do you kind of put it together? But then just stay focused on kind of put a 10-year plan together. I always tell everyone you need to have a plan. But the plan doesn't mean a 45-page PDF. It means here's where I am, here's where I want to go. What are those 3 or 4 things I'm going to do in the middle? And I just see so much opportunity. And here, they're not going to be that Silicon Valley, though we'll get our share of those tech jobs. They're going to be manufacturing jobs. They're going to be making stuff, right? So I mean, it's going to be stuff that's going to make a real difference in both the country and in the local economy.
Let me bounce off of that here in the state of Florida, okay? And again, I'm old enough to remember though, back in the early 1960s, okay, the hottest spot in the state of Florida was Miami Beach. I mean, you had TV shows down there. You had down there in 1964, Ed Sullivan had a special show in Miami Beach where the Beatles played.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
The Beatles played. And then that's where, at the same time, you had the hottest boxing match, in decades. And that was, at the time, Sonny Liston and Cassius Clay, who went on to become, Muhammad Ali. That was in Miami Beach. And you had the Fountain Blue and all this, Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley, everybody playing there. It was a mega center. But then there's some things that happened. I was going to say, I think some hurricanes or whatever, cut back on the beach or whatever. And it took some time, but Miami went through some doldrums there, I'd say for about 10, 15 years or so, okay? Maybe a little bit longer. They went through some doldrums. And I just saw a presentation on this about an hour or two ago. And they said that they got through that rough period and they built on some other assets that they have, some other possibilities and such. I mean, let's face it, you've got all kinds of companies though that are looking to move into Miami now. And like I said, same thing with Orlando. I think it's just it comes in cycles, but um, yeah, one of the hottest places, to right now in the country is Miami as well as Orlando.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So, I
yeah,
do think Orlando will have its time. It might be 3 years from now, but what you just talked about, that whole kind of Space Coast, I think is going to just continue to develop. So, what do you see? So, from a small business perspective, and when I say small, I mean that kind of 5 to 100 person job. When you're helping those businesses with permits, and what's kind of your most common client? When you look at the small, I know you do a lot of business with the Fortune 500 companies, but what's some of the stuff that the small to mid-sized businesses will reach out to you to help with?
again, I'm just maintain and get to know people in City Hall and get to know those people personally because that's one of the things on any type of business, and that's that like with my business as a lobbyist per se is I've got nothing much else to offer. I'd say somewhat, but I can build relationships. And that's what you need to have is you need to have those relationships. I don't care what type of business you're in. You need to have relationships and people that you can call on down there at City Hall. And I like to say, build that up on a first name basis, so to speak. So work with that. And then
What are some of the ways to do that? So before you just say that, is it basically just going to going to meetings and saying hello, being involved? Because some stuff you're not really involved in. You're just on the edges of, right? So how would someone kind of meet someone from City Hall?
one thing I tell them, hey, come to city commission meetings
Okay.
and come to city commission meetings. And I mean, those are free, doesn't cost you anything. So,
And you can shake hands with a few of them afterwards when you
and
don't
then
need them.
yeah, exactly.
I
And
mean, if
that's
you
what
can,
I
if
do
you can
is
get
that
that,
um, I try to tell people, I mean, yeah, hey, come, I'm going to be at this meeting anyway. Come with me and let me introduce you to these staff people
yeah.
and let me introduce you to them. Again, building those relationships.
Yeah,
And
because once you need the relationships, then it's much more stressful, right? I mean, if you meet someone when you don't really need them, you're just, hello, Jim, nice to meet you, etc. That's great. But when some event occurs, you need an approval, you need a permit, you need a variance, and it's interesting, no matter what kind of business you're in, you're still bumping into the local city policies, et cetera, right? In all ways, you don't realize how often you're bumping into how the city's impacting your business.
exactly. But then again, that's the other thing. Depends on the type of business that you're in. But it's not just city commission or council people or staff at those meetings. There's a lot of business people at those meetings. And and that's what I try to tell folks is that, hey, come to those meetings and sit down and get to know some of the regulars that are at those meetings. And you'd be surprised how many business people are there. And I try to, anybody that I have that I'm working with or trying to help out, some newcomers, bring business cards. And there's other things out there, not just those type meetings, but we're having this Friday an economic development quarterly meeting, breakfast meeting, open to business people. No cost. You just have to register your name, but it's a great way to find out what's going on here economic development wise, demographics, things like that, though it's an economic quarterly snapshot, but there's 150 business people there and great place to meet folks. So that's one thing I tell people this as well. Don't come and give them one business card and expect them to call you because what you're going to have to do, what I've had to do with legislators in Tallahassee, when I used to get them for some of our events from our chamber we had in Tallahassee. You got to see the same legislator and give them 5 different business cards 5 different times before they even remember your name. Maybe on the fifth card, they'll remember your name. But another thing too,
But before
And
you
maybe
move
this
on,
is
but that's very, people have to understand if you're building a business, forget about building it, if you're maintaining a business. So building or maintaining a business, you just have to talk to a lot of people and people aren't going to remember you naturally. You just got to stay in front of people. It's kind of one of the biggest challenges we have today with computers and AI is people are losing this connection. They're like, I don't need to spend time at some meeting where it doesn't apply to me. But if you go to enough of those, one or two of those meetings, you'll meet someone that could change your life.
exactly. And what I mean, I just left one a little while ago, okay? And I try to get people to join me. We have a 9 o'clock meeting of our what's called elected officials roundtable. I was at this morning. All of our mayors, as well as city managers or whatever, top local government people, starts at 9 o'clock. I tell people, I want you there at 8:30 because I want you there when they walk in so you can meet them and chat with them there. If you want to stay around and listen to the meeting, bring an iPad because you may want to listen to some of the some of the topics that they're talking about. Not all the topics may interest you though, but there's a good time that you can catch up on those text messages or some of those little tasks that you need to, catch up on those issues that when they're doing those issues you don't care about. Then there's about 15 or 20 minutes after the meeting, walk them out of the room, go up there and say your name again and walk with them out of the room. So get them coming and going like that though. And you have to come back two or three other meetings and then they're going to start to trust you that
Yeah,
you're,
that's
that
good.
you're there. And let me say this, building relationships too. Work with some of the younger people in some of these offices though. One of the things that, I mean, I'm going back to the 1990s or whatever, is our state elected officials like the governor, U.S. senators and all, they have regional people. And you have some that are based in Orlando for the most part. Work with those people. And I mean, there's some people that I've started working with, like say in the governor's office, who was the governor's liaison for Central Florida, based out of Orlando, but their territory included Volusia County. Okay. I worked with them and tried to orient them as much as possible to help them in Volusia County. Anytime that we had a chance to have the governor come, we were able to get them because of that relationship, because you helped that individual. And they're at that stage in their career that they're at a starting point, so to speak. They're not going to be at that position forever. They're going to be at a point where they're going to really calling some shots. They may be moving from Orlando to Tallahassee and taking over the department, so to speak. You knew them back when. You
Yeah.
knew them back when. And
And people don't realize how accessible that two levels down from them are. I have a friend, and he said, "Hey, we're going to go to the local library." It was in Claremont, and I said, "What are we doing?" He says, we were out to get coffee. He goes, "Before we do that, let's run over to the library because I want to meet There's going to be a table with Marco Rubio's person that you're describing, low level." In charge of, I think it was Lake County, right? In that area. And
yeah,
darned Jim, I was like so shocked. We go to the library, nobody's there. The two of us had a 20-minute conversation with this person that has complete access to Marco Rubio when he was a senator. And he was already a senator and he was already famous. So this wasn't like, oh, back when. This was 3, 4 years ago. And so to your point, sometimes we think, oh, we got to get access to the top person. In reality, the person we want to connect to is the people 2 or 3 levels down. And those people are pretty accessible because they're out meeting people and trying to connect with people, to build their careers.
and one of the things I'm most proud of, I mean, I have here on my wall, I got two pictures of Marco Rubio in meetings with him, okay?
Yeah.
And because of those staff people.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we hosted, and because of the relationship with that staff person, we hosted Volusia in Daytona Beach, Marco Rubio's first town hall meeting as a U.S. Senator in Daytona.
I'll be darned.
And because they said, we kind of pick up, I mean, just the relationship that you have with, Jim, with the staff person, where y'all work together pretty much as a team. We're going to go with y'all for the first one. And they call that the textbook town hall meeting. because they said, we want all of our other town hall meetings elsewhere in the state to go like this one did. We
What a
parlayed that though.
compliment. Oh my gosh.
And I'm very, very proud of that though.
Yeah, you should
And,
be.
and, we had some other times where we got access to, had meetings with, again, Marco Rubio, when he was in the Senate, in Washington. We got some FaceTime with him because you have that staff person here working with you, and they remember that. They remember how you worked with them, and they'll go to bat for you later on,
That's such
and
a good
getting
story.
and working with the home office, so to speak. But yeah, and another thing too, going back to small business, and if I could jump the gun here,
No, yeah, no,
because I want to get this in.
yeah, no question.
Uh, the number one thing I want to stress is budget, because if you don't have a clear budget, and it may have to change, especially while you're in the small business stage, initial stage, but budget all you can. I mean, that's got to be number one priority, and stay with that budget. And I'm saying that not just your business, but also personal. Okay. Make sure everything is categorized. If anything, as silly as it sounds personally, I do what's called the envelope plan. When I get that paycheck from Chamber of Commerce on, every other Friday, that night I'm broke. Because I divvy up that paycheck. I got very, very, very few dollars to spend, but those dollars are set away and set aside because there's a major expense that's going to come due, say about 6 to 9 months from now. Okay, that money is tucked away each month, each paycheck, a little bit each paycheck that you don't miss that much. But when that major expense hits 6 to 9 months from now, you go to that envelope of that category, the money's there. But you got to be disciplined. You can't touch it.
So on that subject, I just want to touch on that, and then I'll kind of send it back to you. But I want to kind of set this up a little bit and kind of expand on this. But as a financial advisor, my job for 40 years has been help rich people stay rich. Okay. So I
Yeah.
mean, my whole job's been work with rich people, right? And I've looked for common denominators. What does a rich person do that a person who struggles financially do? And I've really struggled. And I even wrote a book called PlanAssist that kind of identified kind of 3 common principles: have a plan, be diversified, seek counsel, which kind of, and one of the obviously parts of the plan is budgeting. But this expand on even that. When you look at first principles of wealth building, I realized something, and not that long ago. You'd think, oh my gosh, you've been doing this 30 years, should have learned that 20 years ago. I really didn't. I learned it about 5 years ago. Is first principles of maintaining your wealth is asset allocation, right? It's have a liquidity bucket, a safety bucket, a growth bucket, kind of based on time and how the money is. And all that's fine. You sit down with your financial advisors, we'll all kind of do the same thing. But before we can help you, before an advisor can have any impact at all in your life, you have to have your lifestyle aligned with your income. And that applies personally, and that applies with a business, and that kind of just builds on your budget point. You cannot help someone that doesn't have their income aligned with their expenses. It's impossible because they can't plan, you can't do anything. I mean, you miss all kinds of opportunities. It's crazy.
They're living above their means.
Yes.
People living above their means, and that new car comes out, they're the first ones, to get that, brand new car off the assembly line, right? The newest car. And I'm sure probably the number of folks you deal with, but then there's a lot of folks out there that, was it Warren Buffett? I think he drives a Cadillac that's, that he bought a Cadillac for something that's about 2 or 3 years old,
Right.
a used car. And, Warren Buffett, really? Driving a used car, like that. And I can tell you several other stories here locally, whatever, but we've got some people that you'd look at them and very, very well-to-do, very, very well-to-do individuals, though. And, they don't have the top of the line suits and all, tailor-made suits or whatever, but they just, wear regular blue jeans or whatever, work clothes or whatever. But then again, live within your means.
Yeah, whatever that means is. So I mean, if you
Exactly.
have,
And you have to understand that. I mean, just and don't go to that credit card
of
constantly.
all the financial advice you can ever give someone, is, it sounds ridiculous, but whatever your lifestyle needs to be aligned with your income and period. I mean, you got to constantly circle back around because what we call in the financial services business is lifestyle creep. It's everyone, as they make more money, they increase their lifestyle accordingly. And all of a sudden they're 50 or 60 years old. They're living a fantastic lifestyle, but they've saved no money. They don't really have wealth. They have a good income and have a bunch of toys, but they don't really have money.
And those toys don't last forever.
Well, and
And those
they're all
toys, they
depreciating assets.
depreciate quick.
No question, they're all worthless. So, all right, we have about 10 minutes to finish up. I want to keep you on time, and I know you're busy. So the last thing I want to spend on is what are you seeing? And we're just going to barely touch on this with 5 or 7 minutes, but give me the 30,000-foot view of what you're seeing with AI over there, like both in corporate and in government. Kind of, are you bumping into kind of AI type stuff yet, or is it more just kind of on the edges? What's like your experience of what you're seeing these businesses, small businesses and corporate, and government do with AI?
I've seen, certain industries, though, just that they're using AI very much.
Okay.
We have, like I say, we have some major insurance companies here located in Volusia County. Okay. That's one area that I think that you're going to see in AI being used in the insurance industry
Okay.
when it comes to predictability as it relates to property insurance. I'm just saying off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The chances of major storms coming in here to, say, Central Florida. What's that going to mean as it relates to, like, say, premiums that are going to be charged? And I think you're going to see a lot more of AI being used in that regard and things along those lines. I'm using AI quite a bit, with my work, and it's been a major, major help with that. Trying to find out more ways to use it.
How are you primarily using it? Like help you with emails, help you with research? Oh yeah,
exactly.
Really?
Yeah, and just research. Yeah, it's been a major tool. I just cannot get along without it, though.
Especially someone as knowledgeable as you are, you really can take advantage of AI because it all comes down to the prompt and the questions you're asking. So like a normal person asking about permits and stuff like that, it might be somewhat helpful, but someone with your background and experience, you know exactly how and where to ask it. So I'll bet you get some really good information, don't you?
Exactly, exactly. Sometimes where it's given me the names of some specific departments to go to, or different. And another thing that I used it for is different, and it gave me some prospective businesses to call upon for, in a certain area of the county, things like that.
Yeah,
That, I just never could fathom that it would be that deep,
I
that it would know
know.
that much.
It's
And I just enjoyed, playing around with it though, somewhat though. It was funny. I say this though, that the fellow who I work with, he wanted me to make some comments on my podcast about a building project that he's working on. And he had put in there, and you could probably tell from this interview that I'm from Alabama, and that they say I have a kind of an
uh,
accent. But and then this script that I got, it read perfectly. It was so easy to read. It was so natural, the script that he got me, right? And he said, "Yeah, I used AI." And I told him, "You're down here. You're from Alabama. You're, Southern. No, well, no wonder."
yeah.
It took that in there, and it said that script exactly the way that I talk. It's kind of frightening in a way.
Yes, I use it for all kinds of stuff too. So that's why I wanted to ask you. Like even their intro, all I did was copy everything off your LinkedIn and off your page. And I said, give me a quick overview or intro, right? Well, that would have taken 15, 20 minutes 3 or 4 years ago, you know what I mean? Where it
Yep.
took me 3 minutes and then it took me, 10 minutes in total because it took me 3, 4 minutes copy, generate it, read it through once or twice and sounds pretty natural and away I go. It's not, it doesn't take stuff to zero, but it cuts time in half. and it makes it just that much better. That's the way I find it just so useful as these small businesses grow. So if they're not using it, they really have to kind of start thinking about how do you use it to become more productive and more informed. But with that said, to kind of circle how we started this call, that doesn't replace the going to the meetings, the meeting the people, the shaking the hands, the passing out the cards, right? So it is this kind of do it all.
And you can only do so many, like we're doing here, Zoom meetings with business prospects. You can do
Correct.
Zoom meetings all the time, but there's a point
You got to meet them.
that if they're going to do business with you, they want to shake your hand and sit down with you
That's
and
right.
talk face to face. They want to see some flesh and blood in their office before they make that next step to do business with you.
I couldn't agree with you more. So, well, to finish up, how do people get in contact with you? Do you want to give them kind of a summary of who might call you? Like, what would be a typical client that would reach out to you? And then how would they get in contact with you?
I work with, some attorneys here in town on different land use projects that relate to city and county government that,
Okay.
come before city and county government. So I work with them. But then at the same time, helping, with City Hall, making contacts with City Hall people, getting them in the right offices and seeing the right people as it relates to certain type permits and such that they need. Also, I might add, I try to keep people informed as best as possible. Every month, I do what's called Volusia Matters newsletter, and I'm reworking it right now, trying to restructure it a little bit though. But it is probably one of the most informative information pieces around. Volusia Matters News.
Is that what
Uh,
evolutionmattersnews.com or how do they sign up for that letter?
if they want to see that, just go to my website, jimcameronconsulting.com, jimcameronconsulting.com. I've got past newsletters on there. And then my email, jim@jimcameronconsulting.com. Send me an email if you'd like to see it. But I do have an archive of past newsletters. Now, that's every month. Now, every week, I have a new, what's called podcast, again, Volusia Matters. And I give a more or less update on things that happened that week, news-wise, or going to happen the next week. For instance, the other night, Daytona Beach City Commission, they met. They talked about city manager's contract. They talked about budget. They talked about, like I say, just neighborhood development, things along those lines. Short-term rentals, things like that. Last week. Oh, next week, Volusia County Council, they're going to meet and they're going to talk about this on their agenda. And they're going to address land use issues and they're going to address the beach. And they're going to be talking about Volusia Forever. It's an environmental program we have here. They're going to be talking about that next week. School board, they meet next week as well. They're going to be talking about such and such. Things like that. Oh, and then there's a breakfast meeting coming up that you need to know about. Make sure that you register for that breakfast, and you can find the link for that in my newsletter. Things like that, short and sweet and to the point, that are concise articles. That's all the stuff you need to know. You don't need to know,
That's valuable. That's
five
awesome.
columns. This is
I'll
just
sign
a
up for
short
that.
column.
Now, is there a place where I can sign up where you just send it to me like an email, or do I need to just go to your website every week?
You can send it to me, just jim@jimcameronconsulting.com.
And
And
say, add me to
be
your,
more than
your
glad, yeah,
email?
and I can get you signed up for that though. No cost right now. And then it's a very good information piece. I got some readers here in town that I'm very proud to say they read that verbatim every month.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So those of you who live anywhere in Central Florida, because just for those of you who are in Florida, it's important to understand that as Florida expands, what's happening is we're ending up with two major metropolitan areas. You're going to end up with kind of Palm Beach down to Miami, and you're ending up with Tampa over to Daytona Beach, right? You're almost ending up with
Corridor.
two mega cities, metropolitan cities in the state of Florida.
And again, going back politically, because you have more conservative type voting in North Florida, especially in the Panhandle, when you have a more like say liberal type slant. In a number of areas like in Palm Beach and stuff, and more South Florida. But they've always said politically, Daytona to Tampa, St. Pete, How's that section going to go? Because I mean that's a swing area.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. You're right about that. Yeah. Because it has kind of both sides of it. You know what I mean? It has the just south of kind of the villages, that little swath of, gosh, what is it? It's probably 5 million people, I would bet. If you had Tampa and
Yeah,
Orlando and it's some number like that. I mean, that's Chicago for the most part, so it's huge.
sure.
All right, well, I appreciate you taking an hour of your time today, Jim. It's been a fun podcast. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Enjoyed it very much, Tim.
Thank you. Hold on.